He's got me managers. He's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
All right. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, if you don't want to be bothered, fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Hey, if you missed us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.
This is Ian Nethercott from the AutoHub show from ASOTUCon Day 1, Year 3 of ASOTUCon. And we're in beautiful Hanover, Maryland. And we have an active, willing participant for ambush interviews, Mr. Foley. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
And he's coming to us from Virginia, just here for a couple days, I guess, to check out ASOTUCon. So tell me more about you, what you do, and why you do it, and how you help the auto industry.
Sure. So I've been in the auto industry for about 25 years now, and it's all been retail. I've worked on the traditional side for about 15 years. Did everything from sell cars through be a general manager. Then I got into something a little less traditional, worked for a company called Car Lots, and helped to take that company public. We did consignment auto sales, which was a little bit different, but we grew from helping private sellers to helping large fleets, remarketers sell their inventory. And this is my third ASOTUCon, and at the first ASOTUCon, I was in a transition. I had a couple of ideas I wanted to go chase down. I was trying to figure out what am I going to do next, And while I was at ASOTUCon, I was watching a presentation, and somebody was talking about this wave of used EVs that was going to come to market over the next few years. And I was just thinking to myself, like right there in the chair, like, man, there's so much focus from OEMs on the new car side that their franchises deliver this experience that meets what an EV buyer needs. But nobody's doing that on the used car side. There's no focus there. And like, somebody has to solve that problem. And I was like, man, this is what I've been doing. I've been doing used cars for so many years now. I've been on the front lines. I've seen the struggle of trying to sell a Tesla or any other used EV, and like, I think I can go do this. So here I am. I ran with it.
Well, ironically, we were talking to, I think it's the Everything EV podcast. Is it Elena? I think it's Elena. Yeah, we were talking to her today, and I was talking to her about EVs specifically on the used side, but also on the lease side, because I started, as I talked to a Tesla staff member at a location, get these echoes of what was going on with General Motors back in the day when they were setting these residual values that were really high. And then they got landed with a lot of these cars. But with Tesla, it was like it's a forced return lease with a high residual. I'm like, there's going to be an opportunity to sell these things cheap, because it's not like the values are going to be what they projected a couple years ago, especially as they've continued to decline the retail price. So it's interesting. But the other thing that came up, which was really shocking to me, that I read an article yesterday, the Porsche 911 Hybrid is coming. The high-end version is faster than a GT3. And I'm sitting there going, okay, they don't want to talk about pricing or availability because you're going to have a lot of upset GT3 owners. But I thought that was really interesting, because when you look at electrics, there's been a lot of push on the performance. But I think the real angle, and you hit it right on the head, if I can buy that thing for 30 cents on the dollar used, that's a big market, especially if you look at leasing a pre-owned one, which I think is going to be where a lot of that inventory gets moved. Because if I've got 60% of my Model 3s in pick your metro market leased, and they're coming back going, here's the keys, have a good day, that's a challenge for them. And I don't think they're geared up. I mean, we've had from XCare, our buddy from Xcron, many times to talk about extended battery warranties, and he used to be the used car guy for Tesla. But what happens when that Tesla store that's used to selling new cars at full price, even at a discounted full price, now has 500 used Model 3s to sell? Like, what do they do with those cars?
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a great opportunity for me and, some other retailers who are really leaning in the EV space. And then, on the wholesale side, folks like Jimmy Douglas and Plug, to help, normalize the market a bit and give these vehicles a place to land. I will tell you that on the front lines today, what I see is there's a lot more demand for EVs than I think people realize. And so, I can certainly understand how, if I'm a franchise dealer and I've got these EVs that are being forced down my throat, and they're probably, not probably, but they are priced too high, at least to what consumers can afford. And I have a sour taste in my mouth about the EV market. But with these vehicles entering the market today, backed by tax credits that are very affordable, there are a lot of people that are very, very interested in buying a used EV. They just don't have a place to do it. And so they find the right car, maybe it's the right price. They go and talk to the dealer, and they know nothing. They know nothing about the car. They can't answer their questions. They're providing them, no comfort that this is a good vehicle, that they understand it, and they move on. But there's a lot more demand than I think people realize. So
yeah, I mean, we were also talking about what I think is the funniest hybrid car in the market. When I lived in Vancouver, I lived quite close to a Ferrari store. So they had a $1.9 million Ferrari hybrid car. So I went in and I was like, V12 hybrid. Interesting. Why would that be?
Right.
And it was I think the electric only range was 20 miles.
Right, right.
That's a car I'm not quite sure what they were thinking, but then I'm looking at some of these new performance-driven electrics, or even performance-driven big car brands that were generally V8 or V12 brands. I mean, the new Mustang I think it's the 60th anniversary. It might be the 60th anniversary. It's the most high-powered Mustang ever built or something. But when you look at the electric side, and you look at a car, let's just say it's a $30,000 or $40,000 new car, electric. If that car then sells pre-owned for 10 grand, that's a massive market, because that person, what was their only other option? Was a used 20-year-old something, like a Toyota or something?
Look at the Chevy Bolt today. The MSRP on those was over $40,000, and well equipped, but over $40,000. They're selling for $15,000 on the used car market, and they qualify for a $4,000 tax credit. So people are spending $10, $11, $12,000 on a Bolt that, oh, by the way, the battery's been replaced. It has 100,000 miles, so they're buying it with 30, 40, 50,000 miles, and the warranty's going out to 120 to 150,000 miles in the battery, and they're thrilled with that purchase. Thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that came up, which was kind of interesting, and I've seen this from some of the OEMs now, including Honda, was I actually got a somewhat of a comment from Mr. Benstock in passing this morning when I ran into him, because in Canada anyway, Honda reduced the new car margin for new cars at 50% on the Honda dealers. Canada, they reduced it as well, not as much. And I asked him what he thought. He said, it's just gravel. But when I'm looking at the certified use program for a new manufacturer, in electric specifically, let's just say Hyundai to pick a brand, if that car is now retailing at $15,000, they get the tax credit, and they had a lease program on it. Then you start talking maybe even deep subprime customers into those things. So I think that becomes really interesting. And then you start moving to, say, a 20 to 30% market penetration for electric versus what I think is the high water mark now is about 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that becomes very interesting. Do you think that shifts in government policy to the right side of the spectrum versus the left side of the spectrum are going to impact rebates in the next couple of years, or what do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think so. And I was asked this question a couple of times over the last couple of days, and time will tell, I suppose, but there are certainly a number of people who are taking advantage of the tax credit, but there are just as many who don't qualify. The income threshold's relatively low, for an EV purchase. And so we have a lot of EV buyers who don't qualify, even though a lot of our inventory does. So we'll see. I don't know how dramatic the impact will be. I think some people make it out to be, a little bit of a doomsday scenario, but I don't think it'll be doomsday. So.
And what's your thought on solid state batteries or modern or alternative electric batteries from companies, say like BYD, who started in cell phone batteries and are now challenging governments on duties? I know some governments aren't commenting, not to mention our prime minister, but anyway, other countries are commenting. But as you see a shift to, say, solid state to pick a battery technology, do you see that being like the iPhone 15 versus the iPhone 3? I mean, what do you think there?
For the people who pass on the opportunity to buy an EV today, range is certainly a big part of it. If you go solid state, or any of this other battery, technology that is being developed, as range is eliminated, I think more people will consider, EV purchases. When I was building Recharge at the very beginning, in my mind, again, not being this huge EV enthusiast, I thought, man, this is probably a purchase that people make that is very environmentally or politically influenced.
Yeah.
And as I was out talking to and interviewing EV owners, they're very quick to point out that that's not the motivation for most of them. They're fun vehicles to drive. And, if there was one thing that, they wish was better, it's range. They wish they could go farther or fast charge or charge faster and so on. So, yeah, I mean, we're positioning ourselves that in a place where somebody wants to buy a fully electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, we'll help them because I think, plug-in hybrids are a great transition into, full EV ownership. So,
yeah, because there's obviously been lots of, what do I call it, trash talk from Toyota on both sides of this issue, especially around hybrids. And I actually saw a Toyota, what's the name of it? Crown the other day. Toyota Crown, which is a Japanese brand, but they're bringing it to North America.
Yep.
And there's also been some hydrogen talk. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to see a percentage buy electric. That percentage will probably increase over time. To quote Brian when he was talking about fuel injection and airbags on our interview a couple of years ago. But also, when you look at it, when those cars suddenly become affordable to, say, that millennial and younger generation who maybe wants a $20,000 car that's also efficient and cheap to operate, that makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, when we looked at Lucid a couple of years ago and we did a test drive and they have a 1,000-kilometer range or something like that, that's not going to be a $20,000 car. It's just not going to be. So when you look at that, I guess, replacement for Toyota Corolla, which is the entry-level electric, and you look at companies like Tata and BYD and others, do you feel that holy grail of, say, a $25,000 new EV? I know Tesla's kind of abandoned for now. Do you feel that that's kind of the last nail in the coffin of ICE, or what do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I think there's, for maybe as long as we're alive, there's always going to be a place for, ICE vehicles. Will it eventually transition to fully electric? Probably. But yeah, I think the $25,000 price point is, we certainly, on the used car side, it's significant. On the new car side, I think it's, exponentially, more attractive and bring buyers in. But again, I'll just point back to, like, I think the demand for EVs in general is higher than people might realize. And so as you introduce a $25,000 price point on a new car, I think you'll find out quickly that that's accurate. So,
well, I worked for Nissan Canada years ago, and we had a car called the Nissan Micra. So this was a car that was very big in the province of Quebec because it was less than $10,000 Canadian for a new car, and you could lease it for I don't know what. But it kind of reminded me of the Hyundai Pony in the 80s. It was like, I think, $59.95. And it like broke all the time, but who cared? It was like less than $6,000. And I'm sitting there going, interesting, because I think Tata has a car in India that's like less than $5,000 retail. Yeah. Like a basic car. But I think that when you look at micromobility, so that'd be scooters or these crazy guys on one wheel, whatever those things are, accident vehicles. You will see, I think, different choices for people that live in cities who maybe are stretched financially because of other costs. And I think the way people own cars and the way people drive cars and the distances are changing. And I think that's only going to fuel electric, because that, I guess, range anxiety of 1,000 miles or 800 miles, which people don't really drive all that often, is really just that.
Yeah.
For that urban.
Hey, look at the next generation.
Yeah.
You could talk to kids that are 5 to 15 years old, and they know everything about electric vehicles, and that's what they want to drive. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Yeah, great to meet in person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, if you missed us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.